Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Mass Effect. Anyway, this is basically just going to be lore, so if you want to skip it, then feel free. I just like it.
After the Geth
I like
secure
lore.
a location, they round up and impale dead and living
I
bodies on
thought more
mechanical
people made like lore
spikes.
too, so, you know.
The spikes rapidly transform these victims into withered husks, extracting water and trace minerals, and replacing them with cybernetics.
We've heard that one, my mistake.
Thresher maws are subterranean carnivores that spend their entire lives eating, or searching for something to eat. Threshers reproduce via spores that can lie dormant for millennia, yet are robust enough to survive prolonged periods in deep space and atmospheric re-entry. As a result, thresher spores appear on many worlds, spread by previous generations of space travelers. The body of a thresher never entirely leaves the ground. Only the head and tentacles erupt from the earth to attack. In addition to physical attacks, threshers have the ability to project toxic chemicals and emit bursts of infrasound as a shockwave weapon. The Alliance first encountered threshers on the colony of Akuz in 2177. After contact was lost with the Pioneer team, Marine units were deployed to investigate. The shore parties were set upon by hungry threshers, and nearly the entire assault force was killed. Alliance forces recommend engaging threshers with vehicle-mounted heavy weapons.
It generally does help, yeah. Anyway.
Faster-than-light drives use ship mobility dominates space combat. The primary objective is to align the mass accelerator along the bow with the opposing vessel's broadside. Battles typically play out as artillery duels, fought at ranges measured in thousands of kilometers, though assaults through defended mass relays often occur at knife fight ranges, as close as a few dozen kilometers.
Oof.
Most ship-to-ship engagements are skirmishes between patrol vessels of cruiser weight and below, with dreadnoughts and carriers only deployed in full-scale fleet actions. Battles in open space are short and often inconclusive, as the weaker opponent typically disengages. Once a ship enters FTL flight, the combat is effectively over. There are no sensors capable of tracking them, or weapons capable of damaging them. The only way to guarantee an enemy will stand and fight is to attack a location they have a vested interest in, such as a settled world or a strategically important mass relay.
Indeed. Basically the only way of getting people to fight in general, more often than not. Anyway, the council races. Asari culture. Because the long lifespan, Asari tend to have a long view, not common among other races. When they encounter a new species or situation, the Asari are more comfortable with an extended period of passive observation and study than immediate action. They are unfazed that some of their investments or decisions may not pay off for decades or centuries. Matriarchs can seem to make incomprehensible decisions, but their insight is evident when their carefully laid plans come to fruition. In interstellar relations, this long view manifests as an unspoken policy of centralism. The Asari instinctively seek to maintain stability of balances of economy, political, and military power. Traditionally, Asari spend their influence through cultural domination and intellectual superiority. They invite new species to advance developments to join the galactic community, knowing that their ideals and beliefs are inevitably influence the existing culture. Oh, okay. Solarians, the League of One. Before they joined the Citadel Council, the Solarians' most potent military tool was a small reconnaissance team known as the League of One. Their primary training was in espionage and assassination. Never more than a dozen strong, the team was adept at infiltrating the tightest defences and eliminating all necessary obstacles. Only a few top members of the government and military were privy to the League's identities. The League members wore no distinctive garments and held no particular rank. The only evidence of their participation in the League was a small medallion presented to each member on the induction. This secrecy was maintained until the formation of the Council. In an effort to dispel rumours and appease their new Asari partners, the Solarian Union released all classified documents pertaining to the League. The League of One was suddenly exposed and in danger of being hunted by enemies of the Solarians. Before any harm could be done, the team mysteriously disappeared. Most assumed this was a convenient lie to help hide their identities, but a few months later, the inner cabinet was murdered. Though there was no incriminating evidence, it was clear who was responsible. Realizing the threat they posed of this rogue outfit, the Spectre, a special tasks group, dispatched a team of hunters. When they did not return, the STG dispatched 10 of its brightest operators, with broad discretionary powers. Only 2 returned. They reported no evidence of the League. No further incidents were reported, and it was assumed that the League was wiped out. Some recently declassified documents, however, have suggested that there may have been a 13th member who eluded the Solarian military. Turian's culture. While Turians are individuals with personal desires, their instinct is to equivalent the self with the group, and set aside personal desires for the good of all. Turians are taught to have a strong sense of personal accountability, the Turian honour that other races find so remarkable. Turians are taught to own every decision they make, good or ill. The worst sin they can make in the eyes of other people is to lie about their own actions. Turians who murder will try to get away with it, but directly questioned, most will confess the crime. Turians have strong inclination towards public service and self-sacrifice, so they tend to be poor entrepreneurs. To compensate, they accept the mercantile Volus as a client race, offering protection in exchange for fiscal expertise. The Turian military is the centre of all society. It is not just an armed force, it is an all-encompassing public works organisation. The military police are also the civil police. The fire brigades serve as civilian population, as well as military facilities. The Corps of Engineers builds and maintains spaceports, schools and water purification plants, and power stations. The merchants marine ensures that all worlds get the resources they need. Turian's military doctrine. Though they lack the brutality of the Grogan, the skill of the Asari, and the viscosity of the humans, the Turian military is a formidable discipline. Officers and NCOs are lifers? Oh, okay. Our NCOs are lifers with years of field experience, enlisted personally or thoroughly trained to stay calm under fire. Turian units do not break. Even when their entire line collapses, they fall back in order, setting ambushes as they go. A popular saying, Turian saying, holds: "You only see a Turian's back once he's dead." Boot camp begins at the 15th birthday. Soldiers receive a year in training before being assigned to a field unit. Officers trained for even longer must serve until the age of 30, at which point they become part of the reserves. Even if they suffer injuries preventing frontline service, most do support work behind the lines. But yeah, I thought showing the enemy your back was actually just retreating, not necessarily running away. Like, I thought it was just any form of moving backwards. But hey, my mistake. Biotics are uncommon. While admired for their exciting skills, Biotics' motives are not always fully trusted by the common soldier. The Turians prefer to assign their biotics to specialist teams called cabals. Command and control is decentralized and flexible. Individual squads can call for artillery and air support. They make extensive use of combat drones for light duties, and practice combined arms infantry operations with armor, supported by overhead gunships. Strategically, they are methodical and patient, and dislike risky operations. Tradition is important. Each legion has a full time staff and historians who chronicle each battle honours in detail. Oh, okay. The oldest have records dating back to the Turian Iron Age. If Legion is destroyed in battle, it is reconstituted rather than replaced. Turian recruits auxiliary units from conquered or absorbed minor races. Auxiliaries are generally light infantry or armoured cavalry units that screen and support the main Turian formations. At the conclusion of their service in the auxiliaries, recruits are guaranteed Turian civilianship. Also, I am just going to say right now, I am dyslexic, so I'm sorry if I'm failing horribly at reading. Turians, the Unification War. At about the time of the Solarians and Asari were forming the Council, the Turians were embroiled in a bitter civil war. The Unification War, as it was later named, began with hostilities between the colonists furthest from the Turian homeworld, Palavin. Colonies furthest from the Turian homeworld, the Palavin. Okay. These colonies were... Oh, right, Palavin is the Turian home... Alright, I'm sorry. These colonies were run by local chieftains, many of whom were distanced themselves from the hierarchy. Without the galvanizing influence of the governments, the colonies became increasingly isolated and xenophobic. Colonists began wearing emblems or facial markings to differentiate themselves from members of the other colonies, and open hostilities became common. When war finally broke out, the hierarchy maintained a strict diplomacy and refused to get involved. After several years of fighting, less than a dozen factions remained, and the hierarchy finally intervened. By that time, the chieftains were too weak to resist, and they were forced to put an end to the fighting and renew their alliance to the hierarchy. Though peace was restored, it took a few decades for animosity between the colonists to fade completely. To this day, most Turians still wear the facial markings of their home colony as points of interest. The Turian term barefaced references one who is beguiling or not to be trusted. Oh. It is also a slang term for politicians. Wow. How far are we? We're at 10 minutes. That's fine. Extinct races. The Protheans beacon. Didn't we already read that? The beacon was oh no, okay. The beacon was a Prothean artifact unearthed by an Alliance colony on Eden Prime. The resemblance of the Prothean data... Yeah, okay, the resemblance of the Prothean database recovered on Mars provoked immediate interest in the Alliance and the Citadel Council. It proved to be the solid-state storage device, part of a galaxy-spanning comm network similar to the modern extranet. Intact Prothean proto-technology is rare, and the beacon seemed to promise another quantum leap in technology, akin to the discovery of the mass effect drive and relays. Unfortunately, the beacons also drew the attention of the rogue spectre Serenatarius and his synthetic allies, the Geth. The dawn raid of his flagship, Sovereign, resulted in hundreds of civilian casualties. The beacon was badly damaged, and the motives behind the attack are still being investigated. During the recovery operation, the beacon fired a pulse of energy into the executive officer of the Alliance frigate Normandy, Lieutenant Commander Shepard. Survived and appears to have suffered no ill effects. Afterwards, the beacon fell inert. The mechanism appears to be dead. The cipher. The Prothean beacon downloaded its knowledge into Lieutenant Commander Shepard on Eden Prime, causing confusing dreams and visions. While imagery is becoming clearer with time, the meaning of the beacon communications is still elusive. It has been suggested that the Prothean data recording is highly dependent on a certain viewpoint, what Carl Zhang described as a collective unconsciousness. The cipher needed to be comprehended by the images implanted in Shepard's mind. It is a cultural knowledge of the Prothean, the archetypes, the biological instincts, and common experiences universal to races. Since the Protheans have been dead for millennia, it may be impossible to acquire this cipher. Data disks. Despite all evidence confirming the existence of Protheans, little is known about their culture and society. From time to time, digs will yield new clues about 50,000 years of decay. but 50,000 years of decay, little of value is unearthed. Recent research has focused on the discovery of the protein data disks. On their own, they are frail, rather rarely found in one piece. Occasionally, however, an intact disk will be discovered within a console or a reading device. To date, over 3 dozen disks have been recovered, and a few of those have been restored to a point where researchers can begin to analyze them. Though it may be some time before the scientists discover a way to transfer the data off the disks, they are currently considered the most tangible leads to learning more about protein culture. Aliens and non-council races. Geth Armators. Armators are equipped with all-terrain weapons. Are quadruped. All-terrain heavy weapons platforms akin to the armoured fighting vehicles of other races. Geth are synthetic intelligences. Armators are not crewed vessels, but intelligent entities capable of independent decision-making and learning. Armators are equipped with heavy kinetic barriers. Their main cannon is mounted and their articulated head turrets appear to be mainly highly efficient conventional mass driver accelerators. It is capable of firing anti-personnel and anti-tank modes. Some armators carry drones into battle, presumably for reconnaissance purposes. Others host a swarm of insect-sized repair microbots. Ooh. Hoppers. The Geth models, collectively dubbed the Hoppers by the Alliance forces, are electronic warfare platforms. They can project electromagnetic radiation across a broad spectrum as an offensive weapon. They can also perform cyber warfare attacks against an onboard computers of body armor and hard suits. The weapons adversely affecting their performance. The structure of Hoppers consists of an advanced and highly elastic artificial muscle material. This allows the Hopper to compress his entire body for powerful leaps. Hoppers also have thousands of molecular scale barbs on the surfaces of their hands and feet, which is used for clinging to walls. Hoppers are very difficult targets, leaping from one surface to another in rapid succession. Quarians have no record on the Geth modules similar to Hoppers. This new mortal type must be a development over the last 300 years by the Geth themselves. This is troubling proof that the Geth are continuing to move towards technological singularity. Experts in synthetic life are intrigued that the Hoppers appear to be even more organic than the baseline Geth. Identifying subtypes of Hopper have been codenamed the Sapper, the Stalker, and the Ghost. The Krogan Genophage. The Genophage bioweapon was created at the end of the Krogan rebellions. From the start, the Krogan had overwhelmed the Council. Only timely first contacts with the Turians saved the Council races. The Turians fought the Krogan to a standstill, but sheer weight of the Krogan numbers indicated the war could not be won through conventional means. The Turians collaborated with the Solarians to genetically engineer the counter to the rapid breeding of the Krogan. The Genophage virus gained the energy to replicate by eating key genetic sequences. Every cell in every Krogan had to be altered for the weapon to be foolproof. Otherwise, the Krogan could have used gene therapy to fix the affected tissues. Once a Genophage strain could find no more genes to eat, it would starve and die, limiting spin-off mutation and contamination. This created genetic flaw is hereditary. The Solarians believe that the Genophage would be used as a deterrent, a position the Turians viewed as naive. Once the project was complete, the Turians mass-produced and deployed it. The Krogan homeworlds, their colonies, and all occupied worlds were affected. The resulting mutation made only one in a few thousand Krogan pregnancies carried to term. It did not reduce fertility, but offspring viability, and and rare females able to carry children in turn became prizes to Krogan warlords, fought brutal battles over. The Krogan are the shadow of their former glory. While the rebellions took place a century ago, they are consistently reminded of the horror of the genophage, and that their inability to counter it. And the release of the genophage is still controversial, and bitterly debated in many circles. The Krogan rebellions. After the Ragnar War, the quick-breathing Krogan expanded into the expanse with their neighbours. Warlords levered their own veteran soldiers to seize living space while the council races were still grateful. Over centuries, the Krogan conquered world after world. There was always just one more needed when the council finally deemed withdrawal from the Asari colony of Lusai. Krogan overlord Kredak even stormed off the council, stormed off the citadel, daring the council to take their worlds back. But the council had taken precautions. The finest STG operators and Asari huntresses had been drafted from the Covert Observation Force, the Office of Special Tactics and Reconnaissance. The Spectres opened the war with the crippling strategic strikes. Krogan planets went dark as computer viruses flooded the extranet. Sabotaging antimatter refineries disappeared in a blue-white annihilation. Headquarter stations shattered with orbit-clogging debris, rammed by pre-placed suicide freighters. Still, this is only delaying the inevitable. The war would have been lost if not for the first contact with the Turians, who responded to the Krogan threats with a prompt declaration of war. Being on the far side of the Krogan space from the Citadel, the Turians advanced rapidly into the lightly defended Krogan rear areas. The Krogan responded by dropping space stations and asteroids on Turian colonies. 3 worlds were rendered completely inhabitable. It was precisely the wrong approach to take with the Turians. Each was first and foremost a public servant, willing to risk his life to protect the comrades, rather than increasing public war wariness. The Krogan tactics stiffened the Krogan resolve. The arrival of Turian task force saved many worlds from the warlords' marauding fleets, but it took development of the genophage bioweapon to end the war. There were decades of unrest afterwards. Rogue warlords and uphold groups of insurgents refused to surrender, or disappeared into the frontier services to become pirates. Economy. Quarian's economy even. I find that really difficult to say, I don't know why. The migrant fleet had little economic base, operating on the state of perpetual hand-to-mouth. While Quarian ships include light manufacturing and assembly plants, they lack the heavy industries such as refining and shipbuilding. The fleet has tankers of water purification, oxygen crackers, but the space-intensive nature of agriculture limits food production. A singular disaster could destroy a fragile balance. The Quarians have earned income in creative ways because the government is obliged to provide food and water and air and medical support for every individual. The Conclave strategically demands the course of the fleet to bring in resources and income. A species who suspects the migrant fleet is headed towards our space often offers gifts to surplus starships and fuel and resources to convince the Conclave to alter course. As the fleet passes through the system, swarms of mining vessels work over asteroids and metals or siliceous materials to contemporary bodies of water and ice and organics. Quarian miners are adept at locating and ship mining spaceborne resources. This sparks conflicts within the corporations already working in the system. Large mining concerns spend millions on lobbyists and public relations portraying the Quarians as locusts, devouring the resources of a system before moving on. The greatest asset of the Quarians is their rarefying skills. Most are experienced miners due to their life of perpetual surveying, salvage and repair. They are skilled engineers and tacticians. More than once, the very corporations that lobbied against Quarians have made backroom deals with the fleet, arranging for skilled Quarians to fill space engineering jobs, and other species would demand higher wages for. Quarians are widely hated among the working class. The Quarians are coming to take their jobs is a common response to the fleet's approach. Government. Due to the Quarians' precocious existence, they need to enforce strict rationing. Government is somewhat autocratic, and the migrant fleet's operations are directed by the Admiralty, a board of 5 military officers who advise the legislative body called the Conclave. Each vessel and fleet has the right to send representatives to the Conclave aboard a flagship. The number of representatives is based on the crew size. Larger clans with bigger ships and more votes form the cores of political blocks. Opposition comes from the Outriders coalition with delegates from thousands of smaller ships. The Admiralty defers to the Conclave's decision in most circumstances. However, if all 5 members agree that the Conclave's decision jeopardizes the survival of the fleet and cannot get the Conclave to address their concerns, they have the right to summarily overturn the legislative decision. After the Admiralty uses this extraordinary power, they must resign. If the Admiralty does not step down after using their veto, the rest of the military board is obliged to arrest them. Each ship captain has the authority over his vessel, but is advised by an elected civilian council, just as the Admiralty is advised by the Conclave. This relationship may range from cooperation to polite tolerance, to outright hostility. But any captain who overrules his council without any good reason is relieved of command by the Admiralty. Many Quarian ships are owned by clans who pool their resources to purchase used vessels from private sailors. Large ships are prestigious for big, rich clans, but a small ship means stasis for a small clan which is with enough personal wealth to afford a private vessel. Clan vessel captains are not subject to dismissal by the Admiralty. Abusive captains are a family problem if they do not disturb the operations of the fleet. So, let's continue, shall we? I was having a look to see what time it was, but no, we've got enough time. The migrant fleet is the largest concern of the starfaring vessels of the galaxy. Sprawling across millions of kilometers, it can take an entire fleet. It can take days for an entire fleet to pass through the mass relay. When the Quarians fled their homeworld, the fleet was a motley aggregation of freighters, shuttles, and industrial vessels, and the odd warship. After 3 centuries, all have been modified to support larger crews as comfortably as possible. As the Quarians achieved stability, they began weeding out the least suitable ships for long-term inhabitation, selling them and pooling the money to buy larger, more space-worthy hulls. This process is ongoing as vessels wear out and often break down. While some ships enjoy dedicated cabins with full privacy and sanitation facilities, many more are formidable freighters, whose cargo bays and containers are pressurized and divided into family spaces using special medical cubicle bulkheads. The Quarians enliven these austere spaces? I'm sorry, I don't know how that's meant to be said. I think it's austere spaces with colourful quilts and tapestries, which often help muffle the sound. The day-to-day operations of the fleet and traffic control and station keeping, supply distribution, and so on are under military jurisdiction. Though ship captains have the authority to devolt from the assigned positions, they may leave the fleet at any time. They are assumed to do so at their own risk. As the migrant fleet moves around the galaxy, many ships split off to pursue individual goals, returning days or years later. Pilgrimage. When Quarians of the migrant fleet reach young adulthood, they must leave their birth ship and find a new crew to accept them as permanent residents to prove themselves. They must recover something of value. It is offered to their prospective captains as proof that they will not be merely a burden to their shoestring resources. This process is called pilgrimage, or the pilgrimage. Stripped of ritual, the pilgrimage is merely an attempt to maintain genetic diversity within small, relatively isolated This relatively isolated population bases that make up the migrant fleet. If a young stayed and married within their birth vessel, the risk of inbreeding would increase sharply. Quarians are surgically fitted into various immunity-boosting implants in preparation for leaving on pilgrimage. Having growing up within the sterile-controlled environments of the migrant fleet ships, Quarians have virtually no natural immune system. You could just introduce some natural, contaminants. Into your ships, just continuously pump natural contaminants in, and whatever. Anyway, I'll leave it there, so until next time, all the best, and I hope you enjoyed.